Now, dear ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, the time is 2:15. I'm very happy to welcome all of you at our round table dedicated to digital profile development. First of all, please allow me to introduce our panel here. We have a lineup of companies, organizations that are the most active drivers of the project. And also, these representatives are the most active people promoting this project. And I'm going to be fast in doing the introductions. We have Stanislav Korop. He is the acting financial tech director from the Bank of Russia. We have Oleg Alekseenko, the Ministry of Digital Development, Oleg Kolomiytsev. This is the SME Corporation Director, Olga Sorokina, the VSK Insurance House Chairman of the Board. Now, yesterday at the plenary session, she began telling everyone how to promote this digital profile. We'll hear more today. And now, Alina Fatikhova is the director of the Center for State and Digital Initiatives from Gazprombank. Vasilisa, Sidlerova, Alfa-Bank, Digital Services Head. And also I'd like to ask Nikita Kagarmanov from Sovkombank and Gavrilov, the VP from PSB Bank. We have some special questions for them. My name is Dmitry Ishchenko and I represent the FinTech Association and I'm going to moderate this session. Now, let me remind you, ladies and gentlemen, that the digital profile is a tool for receiving verified data from state systems and registers, government services. This project was launched for individuals back in 2020, this year for corporate. And it's a joint project of the Bank of Russia and the Ministry of Digital Development. Our association acts as a platform to consolidate data on functionality and profile development and also to improve the customer journey. Now, dear colleagues, they have more information. They're going to update you in detail, but I think that we have around 44 types of data in the individual digital profiles and a number of consents to use this data is now over 48 million, so it's developing dynamically. However, we are continuing to work on expanding the data list, and the latest approved with Bank of Russia and passed on to the Ministry of Digital Development according to requests from our participants, around 20 types of data for individuals and 10 for organizations. And colleagues are going to give you more details on their plans before the year's end. Now, the digital profile is used not just as a technology, it is being actively used in various business processes. And the latest development and our recommendations are the digital journey on mortgages. So in about 70% of the mortgages, we're beginning to implement the digital profile to provide for seamless client journey in terms of mortgages. Now, our platform, as I mentioned before, is developing consolidated opinion on the project. We are passing the information on to and following up with Bank of Russia, and the Bank of Russia approves the changes, the amendments we propose as an association. However, it is still one of the most active players in terms of initiatives in terms of added functionality and data sets for the digital profile. That's why, Stanislav, I have the first question for you. Could you please give us some stats on development? And the important question is, are the financial organizations still as interested in this project? What are the market trends in the nearest future, and what are the challenges? Thank you so much. Now, please stop me, because I can talk for hours. It's a very interesting subject. No problem. We have the cues for you. Now, let me begin with the individual digital profiles. Certainly, the statistics are similar. Yesterday, we saw 44 million. Today, almost 49 million consents issued using the digital profile. 48,000 organizations have joined the project. 44 types of data sets, plus 13% year on year, and about 7 government bodies are connected as data sources. So I'd like to remind you, it's a showcase. Digital profile is a showcase, most of all, type of dashboard. Now, the unequivocal leader in terms of services, speaking of digital profile, is the finance industry loans, representing 63%. With a big gap, the next is onboarding client forms, application forms, then it is followed in the rankings by consents to use credit history, and then it is followed by insurance services provision. Certainly, it provides to cut down the time necessary to fill in your loan application. In terms of our operations, we constantly receive requests from market players to join our experiment. We provide consultancy on how to join it best, how to connect. There is a specific mechanism for that. We need to get the market players need to write a letter to the Department of Digital Technology, and we provide the contacts and the connections for you. Please join the process. Everybody needs it. 50 million consents speak for themselves. Now, in terms of project development, I would mention the 2 key parts. First of all, the short-term and also the medium-term prospects. First of all, functionality development. Planned jointly with Ministry of Digital Development. First of all is the multi-consent. It simplifies the customer scenario. They provide uniform consent so that his data sets from a number of organizations are passed on. It's a framework type of consent. It's quite simple, but it greatly improves the client journey. We are constantly scaling best practices using digital profile, issue recommendations to the players on how to best use it, and we try to assist the market in proper provision of services. I already mentioned the statistics at the outset that prove that the project is developing, and our association is a discussion platform where we discuss with market players on things that on scale, the scaling issues, the right information. It's important to provide monitoring and monitor the digital profile across data sets. Today, there is a lot of data that is not being used. Why support it? So the categories are important, and it's also a resource. We need to support the right data sets, the right categories, and we need to understand that when scaling and also updating these data sets for both individuals and organizations, we need to monitor everything that is outdated, remove it, and update it accordingly when necessary. What is interesting is the nature and the essence of the digital profile. It's a dashboard of the data sets that exist. master data sets. So there is a confirmed need from market players to receive data which is not yet presented as master data. It's a separate vector for development. I think it is being developed currently with government bodies, government services, consolidate this data to implement it into this dashboard. Another organizational initiative, which is very correct in my opinion, is development of a joint SLA. First of all, we have the market players, which state their needs, whatever they need for certain business initiatives. On the other hand, we have the Ministry of Digital Development that are the owners of this product. Then there is us as a type of funnel, as a type of market integrator. We monitor market needs and provide initiatives, and also the AFT. It's very important for all the market players to understand their role, their needs, their goals and responsibilities also, and also the time frame for developing the digital profile. Today, I see certain gaps in the process, and I think it's a great idea for the future for us to jointly consider on how to best implement this project, how to continue developing it and provide uniformity. Now, regulatory and legal framework is also important. The whole essence of the project for digital profiles is to exclude the unnecessary paperwork for these data sets to be legally significant, provide complete legal alternative to paperwork. Now, it's not working out across all the vectors, however, we are following up. It's very important here to provide for updating this data. It's very important vector to follow up with the colleagues from the ministries to provide for complete and credible data. Also, there is an issue of sufficiency of data and the need to avoid duplicating things on paper. The base question is, why do it? We are fighting to remove the paperwork. It's one of the goals of the old roadmap for digitalization of the financial markets from years 15, 16. And a number of vectors, number of directions are still lacking. Now we need to also improve the mechanisms in the insurance industry and provide certain recommendations for market players, companies that use digital profile, and also we need to provide the regulatory framework so they could improve the situation and work in the paperless environment. That's all across the key points. Thank you so much. I'm going to support you fully in terms of supporting only the data sets in the digital profile that the market really needs. And the latest meeting we had with you and the Ministry of Digital Development, when we proposed introducing additional data sets, and the Ministry of DigDev said that's the last time. They are not going to support any more data sets that are not being used, that are outdated, but adding new sets is important. And just now you mentioned mostly individual digital profiles, and early this year a project was launched on corporate as well. And I have a question for you. Yesterday we spoke with one of the most active players in the association. There's a gentleman in the front row, athletic-looking gentleman, and he told me that I'd like to join the project, but it's it doesn't work very well, it's too costly. Let's work across API. Yes, certainly. The corporate digital profile. Let's come back to discussion.
We have digital profile of individual and the legal entity, which started in 2023, which is specific. I would like to highlight that. I will not touch upon that and dwell on this. Kirill will tell us more details, because this is a good mechanism which actually functions. Digital profile of a legal entity together with the Ministry of Digital Development was launched in March this year. I don't remember when exactly. Dmitry was mentioning that on the plenary session. We have two companies which joined the program. Thank them very much. They are pioneers, just experiencing everything. And we have some problems, of course, which are subject to finding solution in the Ministry of Digital Development and by us. In regards of the digital profile of a legal entity, we don't have enough data. We have to expand that up to the volume of data which is available in the profile, taking into account the specifics of the data provided, and we have to develop that. By the end of the year, I would rephrase that, in the nearest future. Okay, till the end of the year, not specifying which year, we will undoubtedly, in the nearest future, fine, we will expand the list of data. We plan to add 23 of types of data which are most in demand. It's not our desire to do that, it's the need of the market. And the question which you started with, now the legal entity's digital signature works with this through this system. We have already discussed that with the Ministry of Digital Development. On the one hand, connection using the SMAF system allows us to detect incidents and to process them, taking into account the specifics of the channel. On the other hand, individual's profile works perfectly, and we can learn a lot from that. For the company, it's more convenient to have one active channel, which way they get used to. On the other hand, the banks in general, participants of the financial market, also participate in this SMAF system. We have to analyze that. We support variety. We don't want to have the monopoly in terms of the connection methods. We have very good examples, very good cases. Undoubtedly, we have to discuss that with the Ministry of Digital Development. The technology is something that our colleagues are responsible for. We have to understand why, and we actually promote choice and variety. Now I have to ask a question to the Ministry of Digital Development, or I would ask them to comment on that. We actively work in this sphere. I remember the introduction of the certificate from the list of legal entities, which took place in March this year, and thanks to that, the major part of the data are included in this list and this certificate. The work was very efficient, the results are very good, thank you. Nevertheless, we need to involve more consumers of this data, not just banks, and I believe my colleagues will expand on that. And speaking about the certificates, the information provided, the services which the Ministry of Digital Development has scheduled for introduction. Distinguished colleagues, on the 1st of March, the law was adopted, which is a key event for the real estate market this year. Undoubtedly, it was a great challenge for all of us, for financial market in parts of the mortgage process, and I believe that together we managed to succeed. Since the 1st of March, we have already issued more than 8.7 million online certificates, which replaced the paid certificates. And we can consider this project successful. Now we have a dialogue with the Russian register in order to eliminate the artificial barriers, because when we launched the project with the electronic certificates and with the statistic information, our partners were very careful, and only banking organizations have access to this data using their digital profiles. In this regard, insurance and financial platforms do not have such rights. In terms of the financial organizations, we have an agreement, and when the decree number 710 will be adopted in the end of this year, there will be no limitations for the insurance organizations. Also, we are discussing financial platforms, etc. And we believe that together with the Russian Register organization, we will agree on something that will be a compromise for all the participants. Today, I would like to expand on digital profiles in the real estate sector, in particular, because we always talk about the purchasing of real estate. And it's a great challenge for us. If we talk about lease and rental, this is a sector which can change dramatically life in our country, because currently 95% of the deals are the gray zone. But here, what's comforting is that in accordance with the study of the real estate markets, more than 2/3 of cases include an agreement on paper, a contract, and the parts are ready for agreements. If we provide very convenient tools, thanks to which they will feel protected, it can change the process of renting. Please be brief. Fine. The key moments, the key aspects, thanks to which all the parties of the rental process will use the tool which we are creating, is the possibility to check the rights for the real estate. If a person is going to rent an apartment, and it's possible thanks to the integration with the display of the Russian Register organization. And for other party it is the great opportunity to check if it's not a fraud, and if this client has enough funds to pay for that. Because there is data on the incomes, so we also start the self-employment profiles. We believe that in the rental process, the check of funds and payments without disclosure of one individual to another individual, the income certificate, all information about income is not disclosed, just if it's suitable or not. For the particular amount which is due to be paid for the rent of an apartment, that's possible. An additional service, which we believe within the framework of the rental process will be available for our citizens, is the possibility of online registration in the apartments rented. Under the agreement, we have an agreement with the Ministry of Internal Affairs, and there is a portal where you can register without visiting the offices or multifunctional centers. And thanks to the tool we are launching, this process will become very convenient and seamless. We consider this project as a very open one. We believe that in addition to the interface and agreement on the portal of public services, there will be other demanded services. Platforms, banks, announcement aggregators, which will be willing to use our service, they can integrate them in their platforms. In these regards, the Ministry of Digital Development is not a monopolist. For us, it's very important to provide our citizens with a very convenient tools, and in case of rent, they also need protection. Thank you very much. Will this law come into force, I mean the law 710, come into force this year? It's very important, we have to agree that, yes, till the end of this year. The deadline is the end of this year, and in this case, we have to avoid some risks. For example, we agreed on financial organizations And we will continue this work with other platforms. Compromise is the most important thing for us. Another question which I would like to ask to the Ministry of Digital Development about the updating of data. We had a survey on the FT platform, and only a third of the data of the digital profile, and I mean individuals, is updated with the necessary speed necessary for banks and insurance company for their business process. There are some crucial aspects, for example, the employment registration, which is not updated in electronic form. Could you please give some remarks on that? I would like to note that the digital profile was introduced in 2019. Undoubtedly, it was far away from the display of data. They were in the very beginning of the design process. This year we have a lot of displays, different platforms of Russian registration organization, Ministry of Internal Affairs, etc., and so on and so forth. And we integrate the digital profile with these displays, with these platforms, as it was intended to be, as it was designed, with all the participants of the experiment. It's integrated with the services of the Ministry of Digital Development, online request to the platform, and the platform can process that request in seconds. And the more platforms are integrated, are introduced, the easier we resolve the problem. Another interesting aspect, which is very important for the market participants, when we launched the platform of the first platform, there were a lot of not valid data. Now we have a feedback mechanism developed. A citizen can apply to the service of the organization service, client service department, and it's very important that it will be processed by the platform. It's a great step towards, because if there is an old passport data, you don't have to go to the office and to prove that it's a mistake in the database. The organization can update the information online. I believe that this experience will also be applied in other organizations. Market participants is also important because we need end-to-end process. It's obvious that when a client comes to a bank or on the website of a bank and filling in the questionnaire and something doesn't function, you have to proceed with his or her application seamlessly. This mechanism of a feedback to improve data quality, as we call it, public control of data, it's an important vector for our development. Thank you very much. I hope that the next year the problem will be solved. As Oleg said, in 2019, the digital profile of an individual was launched, and at the end of the last year, in the beginning, in early 2023, we launched a legal entity profile, and MSP Corporation became a pioneer and a leader. And I believe that the SMEs actively apply digital profile for preferences for getting access to online services on a digital platform of SME. And I would like to ask Kirill, have you already met what you expected? What advantages do SMEs have? And what are your plans for the future? Good afternoon, thank you very much. And to start, I would like to expand a little bit more about the SME Corporation.
And now I'd like to introduce our platform, the Foundation for its Development. This platform was launched as part of the national project for supporting SME enterprise, jointly with the Ministry of Economic Development and the colleagues from Bank of Russia, Federal Taxation Service. This platform was launched early 2022, and its key goal is to provide the SME sector with an opportunity to get state support measures online, both regional and federal. And certainly there is a large number of other services that help them in business training, education, enable SME entrepreneurs to receive financial support measures and other support. Today, we have over 500,000 users registered at the platform. Do we have the organizers here? We need some technical support. So, first of all, the goal of the platform development was to facilitate the work of entrepreneurs when working with the government. But now, let me explain the basis for development of digital profile. We work a lot with entrepreneurs, and we also take note on their needs in terms of government services provision, their communications, what could we simplify, what to improve, and our feedback indicated a number of key sore points. First of all, if the government supports certain support measures, why shouldn't the government collect its own data on me as a legal entity? Secondly, why does it need to duplicate the data? Second, why the government, knowing a lot about my business, is asking me for additional data? Why cannot it be done proactively? And thirdly, is certainly more of a problem of the state bodies, be it government authorities or banks across SME financing schemes. I mean, the verification of data that business provides. So in 2020, we launched an initiative for the colleagues to create SME profiles, collect the main data from state register to provide support measures. 18 data sets were identified as primary. It's not 44 like individuals, but these 18 are the most data sets that are required when addressing government services for support measures. This is various stop factor verifications with SME support measures, and also data financial reporting data, taxation data, because certainly no financial support measures can be provided without all of that. As a result, at the end of 2021, Resolution 2371 was issued on digitalization of small business support measures, and the entrepreneur digital profile became the basis for that. So this provided the foundation for launching the project. Then, jointly with the colleagues, and I'd like to thank the Federal Taxation Service, Bank of Russia, and the Ministry of Economic Development, we quickly launched the project. And late last year, it began working on SMERF as a ready business tool. It greatly improved receiving business support measures. It avoided duplication of additional data. It removed the need to provide superficial data, unnecessary documentation. It avoided double checking, and also cut down on the timeline for reviewing applications, and also filling these applications, because the same application for an express loan for SME across various programs took only 1 day to collect all of the necessary documentation. And if these documents were lacking, or if it was done by an accountant, it could have lasted few weeks. But today, using the digital profile on the most loan products, the process is cut down to 15 minutes. Same goes for financial support services. This is subsidies. These are micro loans. And it greatly improved the loan application process on behalf of the businessman and allowed us to automate this process. Today, we have some intermediate results. On the outcomes of 12 months' work, we had 150,000 applications using the digital profile to receive support measures. And today's rate, this 10%, is certainly not a template. There is lots to strive for, but it's not a bad outcome for the first 12 months of the project. Now, there is a consent process for data sets. It's a two-factor authentication process. At the SME RF, you sign the consent, then you confirm it at the state services register, at the state services platform. Then with taxation, you need additional consent. On the one hand, it's a stop factor because the entrepreneur, the businessman, needs to do duplicate their actions with taxation as well. And we understand that these are all stop factors because it's an extra click. But for business, it's important to remove another big problem. And only the digital profile for business enabled us to do that, to greatly improve the process. Once we get all the data sets, we overlaid over all of the stop list factors using the data from the taxation service across the big data sets. We verify the right support framework for a given business, identify any stop factors, and also identify which support measure can be most effective in assisting their business. All of this is achieved due to the digital profile. Without that, it wouldn't work. Now, about a month ago, or even less, back on the 14th of October, there was an amendment to legislation, Resolution 2371. We added another 6 data sets. This is a regulatory framework today, but next year, jointly with the colleagues from the Ministry of DigDev and the Taxation Service, we need to implement it, and this will enable us to collect even more data about the business, to even further cut down on the documentation businessmen present, and improve the efficiency of the process and outcomes. Now, let me give you some stats on the future and development of this process. Now, everyone understands how it works across individuals. Nobody has any serious problems. However, corporate profiles, for many entrepreneurs, for many businessmen, it creates a rejection because they don't want to avoid single data about them, single data set about them being collected in any given place, because they can be used illegally. Certainly, security is a serious concern. Well, it's not a credible concern because it's all protected, but we need to promote this project. We need to raise awareness across the business community in terms of no risks to this process of data misappropriation. Also, the data in this corporate profile has to be legally recognized by the government support bodies that provide the support measures. It's a serious problem because we're trying to move away from paperwork. We're going online. But at the same time, say a regional body provides a loan and then the prosecutor's office comes and sees him for an audit, and asks for the paperwork, and they don't recognize the online protocols of loan issue. So it's a problem that needs to be legislatively recognized. There has to be a legislation framework which will provide basis and protection for the businessmen and also guidance for the organizations that provide this support. Thank you. It's a very interesting subject in terms of consent, providing consent. In terms of latest stats, over the last 12 months, the amount of consents has grown double year on year. And for instance, the number of recalls of these consents has grown fivefold. It's not a bad fact in itself, because we understand that people are learning to use their consents. They not only provide consent, but also revoke it. So, dear colleagues, frankly, my background is banking industry, and I've always thought that banks are the most active players in all of the FinTech initiatives, digitalization, and so on. I've always thought that until I met Olga, until I began actively working with VSK Insurance. And certainly, I'd like to note that VSK was one of the pioneers in joining the Digital Profile for Individuals program. And today, if we look at SME, corporate digital profiles, they were the first to join the corporate digital profile program. Now, I have a question for you, Olga. What is your experience with connecting to the project? I'd like to hear your view on both aspects, individual and corporate digital profiles. Dmitry, thank you. Following this introduction, it's difficult to say anything, but certainly I'd like to congratulate our panel on collecting such a huge turnout in the audience. They're spilling outside into the hall. And I have a question. How do you know, those of you that have organizations connected to digital profiles, whether it's individual or corporate? Can you please raise your hands? We can see half of the people in the audience are putting their hands up, so they've already joined the digital profile system. Well, very good. That's a good outcome. And now, I'd like to ask the question of those who haven't yet joined. Why did you come to our panel? I'd like to support Stanislav reiterated it earlier. After the conference of the Russian Insurers Union, certainly I had a lot of people approaching me, expressing interest, but they don't know how to join the project. And the central bank has issued the guidelines for joining it properly. It's a very straightforward process. The easier it is to join, the more of you join, the more successful the project will be. And jointly with the Ministry of DigDev, we are going to continue improving the collected data sets. Dmitry, you're right. Sometimes the data that's not used indicates a problem. And it's very important, as we indicated at Ms. Korobogatova's session, it's very important to note, and this is a question for you, Oleg, for time frames, timelines to be set. We'd like to improve the timeline or introduce verification, as Dmitry mentioned. In year 2019, we began the process. We need to improve data quality, but it's a problem, and I'd like to also mention it using this platform. And those of you that are using this, joining the scheme, I'd like to mention that regulatory frameworks are changing. And at Alina outset, when we just joined, we had an opportunity to use digital profile only when signing insurance contracts.
Other processes were not included, but it's changing again. The FinTech platform is used for that. We apply, and we managed to expand the functions, number of functions. Of course, we include all the insurance companies which use digital profiles, also the regulation of the digital events. I included. Each of you has your own process in the organization, but the most important change which was adopted is that we can use data of digital profile in our operation work, in interaction with our agents, with our counterparts. And I would like to thank Oleg for that, especially thanks for providing access to the register to the insurance company. I was thinking about the report, about the papers with information to demonstrate you the numbers, but I would like to start explaining that digital platform is an organism, is a living body. First question, which is of our concern, digital profiles shall be the only argument or the target argument which will allow us not to keep paper documents. Unfortunately, our regulation provides for the maintaining the paper documents in our archives. We pay for that, and it's regulated officially by the ministry. Dmitry said that we are digital and we shall remember about the paper documents. That is why, firstly, we need to integrate the whole information which the taxation service has, other ministries. It's very important to integrate that into the system. Number two, being an insurance company, we work with all the partners, with all the industries, including transportation, the car dealers. We have a great portfolio on the market, which includes the car insurance, because all the cars have electronic passport of a vehicle. It's not a public source of information. And now, if we actively used the data which we obtain from the digital profile of a vehicle, now we do not have such an opportunity. That is why I realized that not everything depends on the Bank of Russia and the ministry. As far as I understand, this service will be unavailable for us because we cannot get this information from the digital profile. The third question was related to the mortgage, which you have mentioned. Number four, super service by the Ministry of Digital Development. It's a huge breakthrough for the market. Super service for the cars, for the vehicles, where you can see the certificate, the passports, the driving license is not verified. This is the data which a citizen provides to the system. We need to interconnect these systems and we need to rely on them, because in accordance with the legislation we have to verify the period of validity of driving license and all the changes made to the passport of a vehicle or other documents related to a car. And of course we would like to see digital profile in the offline channels. This is such a wish for the future. This service will be very useful. And of course I shall expand on the medical services. It's very convenient for us to have digital profile because we have a consent within the profile. We use it legitimately. Those who do not want to use that, they can withdraw a consent. There is the unified source of the healthcare system, which is a medical certificate. We would like to have information about consent of a client for medical services. In the law, there is such a tradition. When a client interacts with a doctor, he or she sends the data by WhatsApp, email, Telegram, not protected channels, despite the fact that it's personal information subject to protection. That is why we would like to see a consent of our citizen to receive information using this source. And I would like to expand on the digital profile of a cooperative, a legal entity. We have been waiting for that for a long time, because despite all the demands, despite all the requests, it took a long time to have such a profile. For us, insurance company, it's a decrease of risks. First of all, of fraud. We are not banks. Bank can identify a client using digital profile. We do not need to identify the client, but for us, it's just a simplification of a client journey for our clients. As you said, any additional click is the reduction of number of clients from the funnel. And this is the client experience which we would like to introduce. Corporate digital profile works in a test mode. It has a very limited list of documents. There are 3 key documents: certification of the sole proprietor of a corporate, and of course, this is the official registration certificate. For us, it's very easy because we do not request additional data from the enterprise, and thanks for that. But speaking about SLA and verification, probably we can gather on the platform of the FinTech platform to agree on that, to discuss which is the period for updating the data. You said there is a public control verification, because for us as a business, it's very important to be confident that the data we are receiving are verified. And the second aspect is to update the data constantly. Thank you very much. Thank you, Olga, for your active position and for your hard work. And in regards of the SLA, your last question, I made notes, and you, as a head of the committee of the FinTech Association, shall include that in the next meeting's agenda. We have banks with us, not just banks, but the most active participants of implementation and improvement of digital profile. Gazprombank, for example, was the first to connect to the digital profile of legal entities. And the question, how was it? Could you share your experience? Maybe you shall share the manual or give us the guidelines how to do that. What do you think about the project related to the corporate digital profiles and individual's profile? Is it useful in which services it is applied? Could you answer these questions? Yes, of course. Dmitry, thank you very much for invitation and for the question. Last year, the priority was the profile of an individual. We promised to launch the pilot project this year, and we did that. Gazprombank successfully finalized the pilot stage. Together with our clients, we have experienced the necessary accessible scenarios, provision of the consent, and of course receiving data on organization and refusal. And also there can be a report on the blocking the accounts and other information. I would like to emphasize that the pilot stage is not a full stop. It's only the beginning of the long journey, together with the regulators, with the Ministry of Digital Development and participants of the market. In order to integrate digital profile of an organization into our banking business process, first of all, we need to focus on the analysis of a number of questions. First, what data is also available in the digital profile of a corporate? And their validity is critical, is crucial. How fast we can receive this data? Which data do we need to add to the digital profile of a corporate? And to which extent the requirements and current needs of the participants will be covered? These are the drivers for promotion of such a solution. Number 4, we also would like to realize what are the limitations, legal limitations are there for the banks in terms of using this data. And of course, we need to think how to integrate that into the customer's journey. Globally, we provide all these services for our clients in order to reduce the time for documents flow, so they could focus on business process, on development of their own business. That is why we would like to thank once again the Ministry of Digital Development, the Bank of Russia, and the SME Association, and we would like to express our willingness to work further on development of such a service. Thank you very much. Could you add anything about individuals? Yes, I would like to say that we have started working with the digital profile of a citizen in February 2022, and at the moment of launch of this project, the number of applications was 30%. Now this indicator is almost equals 50%. For a client, it's a great opportunity to apply very quickly in some clicks for the mortgage loan, for other loans, and the bank can make a decision on the basis of the verified data on employment and income. Since we are limited in time, I would like to highlight again the SLA issue. It was mentioned by everyone. I make notes. I would like to highlight that it's a consolidated opinion of all the participants of AFT. It's not only our problem. We need to have SLA by the organizations on a return of the documents. It's crucial, and I would like to explain why. According to the data which we have received by the request of the statistical organization, the average period of certificate issuing is 3 minutes, and the maximum is 1 hour. It's the average, it's the ordinary burden on digital profile. If the burden increases, time increases as well. The average period of time for processing of a loan application. You see the field where the data on the income is uploaded in 2 minutes. That is why we and do not forget that I mean the website. If it's a mobile application, it's even more crucial because usually the application form is very short and the application users cannot wait 2 or 3 minutes to see the decision because it's a big period of time for them. That is why I need to see the SLA. Our last position was about the 30 seconds period of time. And of course, we need to set the priority of the users, insurance, banks, and users of the public services platform in provision of such documents by request. Thank you very much. Please don't worry, as it's a tradition. On the results of the roundtable, we will sign a protocol, minutes of our meeting with the key positions what the Ministry of and the Bank of Russia and the Ministry of Digital Development have to take into account. Thank you very much. Actually, we observe development of digital profile in different organizations, and I can say that in Alfa-Bank, for example, the obtaining of consent for the period of this year, the number of consents was more than over the whole previous period. What is the secret? How did you achieve that? It's such an accomplishment. And since we are limited in time, I would like to ask the second question. Alfa-Bank is working on expanding the channels of digital profile application. Now we have pilot projects connecting the mobile applications into the infrastructure of your profiles. Good afternoon, distinguished colleagues. I would like to answer the first question first. The number of consents grew significantly. We managed to change the approach to the project. We have strategic initiatives. Number one, we have introduced a new technological solution which allowed us to improve efficiency of the system, allowed to upscale the efficiency in the systems of the bank, united all the channels of communication with clients into the unified system. The second is introducing of digital profile in the bank digital system.
And since this year, we are beginning to continue digital profile in the branches, in delivery, and online bank app. Now, online channels represent over 50% of consent. Now, third factor is we're working with data from the digital profile, improving quality as well. This data was implemented into risk models, representing high indicators. Over 60% of the customers received better offers, reduced interest rate, the amounts of the loan increased. So we're not only talking of the cut time for the application, but also improved terms for the clients. So we were able to significantly increase the number of consents. As of last week, we are ranked third. Sberbank and VTB are in the first two positions. Now, the operational units, branches, are also working with these data sets to improve customer services. So we're scaling the solution. Now, in terms of the mobile app represents around 50% of all the consents collected. Now, certainly it's not a big ratio. 30% is branches, deliveries, and 50% is loan apps. Now, it's quite a fair representation because most customer flow comes from loan applications. We're continuing to improve these channels twofold. First of all, it's shaping the need from the customer side, so improving motivation, because clients are certainly hesitant to transfer personal data to finance organizations. And second is improving customer experience and client journey. Today, clients provide consent in their state government services portal, and then they have to switch. They have to follow a link, but only 10% that we send to government state services portal, only 10% of them follow through. 90% get lost in the pipeline. And this year we are improving a new mechanism that makes for a seamless customer journey. We switch from the app into the bank website, and the client can provide seamless consent. We are now in the trial stage, and hopefully this will be implemented by year's end, which will significantly improve conversion. Now, in the final stages, in terms of individual digital profiles, we are not standing still. Jointly with Ministry of DigDev and organizations, we're continuing follow-up. We are increasing data scope. Today, self-employed were mentioned, and our goal is to provide for overall individual data necessary to receive bank products need to be presented in digital format, and this will greatly improve customer journey. Now, certainly, we haven't implemented the corporate data sets this year yet, because we need to correct and improve these data sets. There is a consent issue also across corporate, and we are jointly following up with the Ministry of Digital Development on the mechanics, not to avoid dual integrations and the costs blow up. Thank you so much. Very interesting. The time is out. I hope the organizers won't kill me, and I cannot avoid. I'd like to ask another question of the bank that's working on scaling the channels. Nikita, just a few words briefly. Tell us about the channel for consent for banks and insurance companies using the SLA. Well, briefly, first, I'd like to thank all of you. Because certainly the work by the Central Bank and the Bank of Russia and the FinTech Association is very important. They provide the structure, and now we can talk about development of this system, not building it from scratch. And the issue of online access is very important. Speaking of client centricity, it's very important, and a lot is being said today. And speaking of offline data transfer to the bank, today the share of consents online is sky high, up to 90% almost. But speaking of offline, it's different. And if our mechanism becomes more customer-centric, then next year the share of these consents can grow even higher. We see even more good cases. For instance, the pension fund certificate issued across digital services, and maybe some other mechanisms implementation across the platform would be a great idea. Now, more on a general discussion, I'd like to add another thesis. Certainly, I can agree with most of what has been said. It's necessary to update data. I'd like to focus your attention on the taxation data and on the tax return data. It's very important for the bank. Across the scoring metrics, we need the income data. And if this data is updated faster, then our scoring models will be improved, and there will be less defaults and less rejections. Now, in terms of consent monitoring, it's no secret. Financial market, the banks have two key mnemonics we use. This is credit and credit or non-credit services. They have around 30 data sets each that we can collect across both to populate our scoring models. Some of them have real estate data, and others have self-employed data, and the rest of the mnemonics are the same. So perhaps we need to unify both, revise whether they need to be updated, and avoid the superficial in the new master mnemonics. So they focus exclusively on scoring, provide both information on the self-employed and on real estate. Thank you. Thank you, Nikita. Following your words of gratitude, I'd like to thank you. Nikita, you nailed it. Now, another brief from Roman. It's a great project, and I'm going to make some key points. Thank you about adding the sole entrepreneur data. It's very important. It's very good for financing. I'm speaking of entrepreneurs and also financing. Now, however, the customer journey is seriously harmed by the consent process. It would be great to consider a similar option to the credit history, where the bank collects it and then the operator confirms it at audit stage. Because, as was mentioned here, transfer to another system doesn't make sense for the client. We'd like to shift to API. I don't see any advantages in the old system. Well, I'd like to reiterate that it's very important. I'd like to stress that we need the information from the single state taxation register. We have the information on individuals, but not the information on legal entities. Also, we need the data from the single state register of agricultural lands. It has all the data on what was sown, on the harvesting, on the ownership. And as a cherry on cake, we need Federal Taxation Service credit rankings. If possible, we'd like to get that too. It would be very useful to us. Thank you. That's all. I think I made it on time. Thank you. Thank you for being prompt. Certainly, it's a good platform, and it's important to cover everything. Issues like API at this platform. And also, I made notes in the minutes of this meeting to improve data sets, add more categories, update data across the profile. Channels number have to increase. Switch to API has to take place. Dear colleagues, we are now far out of time. We've exhausted the agenda. Thank you, dear colleagues. It's been a very interesting and informative meeting. And as we say, we are strong together. Let's follow up. And thank you and goodbye.